In 2 days, I'm going to go to Haiti for the 6th time in the last 4.5 years. I will continue working on a clean water project that I helped start in the aftermath of a cholera epidemic that resulted from the international aid community's response to one of the most devastating earthquakes in human history. When I get off the plane, collect my bags, and walk out of the airport, I'm going to hear a constant call of Blanc, Blanc, hey Blanc, Blanc. Blanc being Creole for white, something I clearly am. This is going to happen wherever I go, and it's going to last through the duration of my stay. Now, I want to be absolutely clear. I have never looked at this as something that has been intended to be negative. As a matter of fact, I look at it as simply an acknowledgement of reality. It's a reality that has been forged through long-standing inequities. And sometimes when this happens, I feel like I'm being punched in the face with historical truth. It's painful. It's uncomfortable. It's difficult to deal with. And sometimes I think that the best way to understand this difficulty and this discomfort is the fact that as Blancs, we're often simultaneously viewed as symbols of hope and opportunity, as well as symbols of despair and oppression. Now, both of these symbols are certainly valid, but an honest account of history says that one of those symbols is way more accurate, way more often. Ever since Christopher Columbus first set foot on the island of Hispaniola, we Blancs have stolen land, committed acts of genocide and military abuse. We've enslaved and oppressed workers, and we've extracted numerous resources, all without any attempt at just compensation. We like to think that we atone for past wrongs through aid and development programs, but there's mounting evidence that shows that these programs do more to bolster corrupt governments and engender a culture of dependency as opposed to actually helping people on the ground transcend the problems that they're confronted with. Examples of inefficient planning, dubious contract awards, wasteful spending, and outright theft are well documented, but something that we don't often consider is the fact that us Blancs who do work in Haiti, we benefit from our time in Haiti way more than any Haitian does. Doesn't matter if you work for a large NGO or a development agency or a small grassroots nonprofit like I do. This is just another form of extraction with questionable returns. In my case in particular, having started this project will likely turn out to be a great career move. Something that I can parlay into different opportunities, bigger and better projects down the line if that's what I choose to do. And it doesn't even matter if we're successful. I'm going to get credit for initiating something unique. I will have been able to prove that I can work under duress, and I will obviously have accumulated a lot of experience that I can take to future projects. This is not a part of my friends' realities who live in Haiti, and that bothers me. It drives me to do more, to do as good as I can. The first time I went to Haiti, it was pure happenstance that brought me into the mountain areas where we continue to work today. Lots of people were dying from cholera, and despite an internationally funded nationwide education campaign, none of them knew what cholera was, and they certainly didn't know how to deal with it. I think this goes a long way to explain the level of isolation that these communities live under. Very little is known about communities in Haiti's mountains. They're often inaccurately shrouded in mythologized views of voodoo. There's very few useful or reliable statistics available. And aid workers, government employees, medical personnel, and researchers rarely, if ever, make it into any of these areas. What we do know is that throughout its history, Haitians have been fleeing deep into the mountains to escape slavery, conscript military service, forced labor, and political violence. Through time, they've developed complex networks of trails that are difficult to find and difficult to follow, and even today there are still very few roads that make it into any of these areas. Now, this has been successful in thwarting groups with bad intentions, but it's also prevented much-needed aid and services from finding their way in. When I returned home after that first trip, I was given the contact information of a high-ranking official with the United Nations response to the earthquake that Haiti had just had. I submitted a very simple yet effective proposal to begin addressing some of the needs that I had encountered, and I was careful to point out that there were likely hundreds, if not thousands, of similarly impacted communities throughout Haiti whose needs had continued to go unmet. The response I received was sobering. I was told that the project was worthwhile, that our work was commendable, and that we were certainly deserving of support, but that the United Nations would not be doing any work in any of those types of areas. I soon found out also that none of the NGOs that we had contacted for help would be helping either. So from that point on, we made it our mission to work in isolated areas of Haiti where needs had continually gone unmet. Now, where we work is called really kind of two areas, Pépourie and Marozo. There are two contiguous groupings of villages spread out over an area of about 150 square miles. They have a total population of about 30 to 35,000 people. And the first community that we work in is a 4-hour hike straight up the side of this mountain from the nearest point that we can access with a vehicle. We pack all of our supplies in on mules, and there's a number of communities further in, and some of those we still haven't been able to contact yet. People in these areas access drinking water in one of two ways. Either they collect drinking water through rain catchment systems, most of which are put together with materials that they've been able to scavenge and haphazardly assemble. The other way is to collect drinking water from nearby streams. Now, these streams are also used for washing clothes, bathing, and watering their animals, and they are almost always contaminated. Furthermore, it's women and children, mostly children, that have to walk between 2 to 4 hours round trip, often multiple times daily, just to bring water home. Now, under conditions like this, cholera can spread like wildfire. So what we do is we've developed and deployed a number of very simple yet effective and durable high-volume water filtration systems. We offer community presentations and classes on waterborne disease, particularly cholera, basic sanitation practices, and then we distribute hygienic supplies such as hand soap, toilet paper, and bleach. And on this upcoming trip, we're going to start building more efficiently designed and more durable rain catchment systems. I know the work that we do is positive. It's difficult for us to say exactly how positive because we're a small organization and we focus on distributing resources as opposed to quantifying our impact. But we know that cases of cholera have dwindled dramatically, and the people there tell us that they really value our participation. And I feel good about that. But I have to say that the first few times I made it into these communities, I didn't see people that were capable of dealing with the problems they had been confronted with. I'm ashamed to admit that because I know better than to think that way. And I have since thought and convinced myself that maybe that's because I was focused more on the problems at hand rather than the people that we were working with and trying to help. But the reality is that I was also blinded by my own arrogance and preconceived notions of how the world worked. Now when I visit these communities, I see survivors, diligent workers, active members of communities who are very capably looking to the future. In fact, during our last few visits, in every single community that we've done work in, people have approached us asking us to help them with farming. These are people who are very proud of their agricultural heritage, and more than a few farmers have told us it is they who should be feeding their fellow Haitians, and it is they who should be covering deforested land with new life. They're aware that resources exist that could help them be more agriculturally productive, but they feel like these resources are largely out of their reach, unavailable to them. Unfortunately, I have to agree. The reason is because aid and development programs in agriculture are increasingly utilizing market-based incentives aimed at individual farmers who are selected to participate through a highly competitive process. They're told what to grow, how to grow it, and then what to do with what they grow. The idea is to develop competitive-minded businessmen and women as opposed to more agriculturally productive farming communities. Furthermore, they're increasingly being required to grow export commodities such as coffee and cacao, which provide us Blancs with luxuries, but don't provide Haitians with much-needed nutrition. These types of programs certainly benefit and certainly appeal to free market economists, development banks, private investors, but in the communities where I work that often share and pool resources, this type of systematized competition would have disastrous effects. The message that we send seems to be that, yeah, we'll help, but we need to benefit too. So you have to do things our way. And it's important to keep in mind that our way, the Blanc way, has never worked for Haiti, ever. If it had, things there would be very different today. It doesn't matter what country we're from. It bears repeating that we Blancs have been implementing and placing systemic barriers to social achievements upon Haiti throughout its history, and we're doing little to rectify those problems. When I was thinking about putting this talk together and going through all the different nuances and ideas, especially during the last few weeks, I couldn't help but notice and contemplate the obvious parallels between the things Haiti has endured and dealt with through history and the things that we've been dealing with here in the United States. It doesn't really matter what you feel about the way that things have evolved, but the events that we've seen unfold in cities like Ferguson, Charleston, Baltimore, they're further examples of deep-seated frustration that minorities have with these same types of systemically implemented barriers through history. But what this has done is it's presented us with a truly unique opportunity to build something transformative. And us Blancs need to be a part of this process, not just a part of the conversation, but an active part of finding solutions to the problems that we all face. Now, just as I have experienced in Haiti, this is a difficult, uncomfortable, and confusing process. It's a process that has proven to be much easier to reject than embrace. Many of us Blancs believe that we now live in a post-racial society, that any kinds of systemically entrenched barriers that may have once existed have long since been torn down, and that minorities need to simply stop making excuses and move forward productively. This is a terrible conclusion, because what this conclusion says is that minorities aren't capable. It says that they don't have the same types of capacities to achieve success that us Blancs do. It makes absolutely no logical sense whatsoever that entire groups of fully capable people would voluntarily hold themselves back in the absence of systemically entrenched barriers that prevent them from advancing forward. If we want to build a truly equitable and just future, we're first going to have to look at some very uncomfortable elements of our past and then move forward in an actionable way. I've already mentioned that this is a difficult process. It's something that I still struggle with, but the more that I've embraced this process, I've come to realize that I've been brought to ideas and thoughts that I've never before considered. I've felt emotions I didn't know were possible, and I've been able to develop friendships and relationships with people that I didn't think I'd ever be able to. This is a beautiful process. It comes with a lot of difficulty. But if we can all embrace this process, it will bring all of us, to truly limitless possibilities. Thank you.